So we will talk about versioning Lambda function code via Git in serverless. Let's quickly summarize this one. Okay, so basically we are changing the functionality of how we manage functions, how we can version functions because of a couple of problems, limitations maybe that we had. First of all, there is no version controlling. There were no version controlling before. The second one, project structure was a big limitation because of actually user could write only in one file and was limited only to it. Third is that the code was directly attached to CID, which actually was not really handy. And actually, the only thing that could work with this was the web editor, which could actually let you edit the code. But this was the only tool. Mm-hmm. And before we proceed, we need to meet someone. His name is Matthew, and he's a cloud engineer. He's open source enthusiast and contributor. He's Kubernetes expert, and his motto is there any CLI for that? So this is the guy who we are addressing this functionality to. We want him to have a way to deal with the version, actually, the functions that he's writing with Git with a convenient way. So without further ado, let's jump into the demo. So maybe a couple of things. Sorry, I prepared this layout. So at the bottom we will get on the left the functions that will be created. On the right, the repositories that will be created. So this is just a description. Okay, so we will go through two scenarios of the functionality to check what Matthew can do. And the first one is the really basic one, in which we will create a function based on a public repository hosted on GitHub, and we will check if the function will be rebuilt, and the function will be rebuilt in case of changes in the code. So we'll check so-called follow the head scenario. So let's check the sources that we are going to apply. So I will show you first the function. So a couple of changes here. First of all, the new field source type is present. It's optional field that shows that the code is versioned in Git. The source property also changed. Before, the entire code was attached to it. Right now, it shows the reference to Git repository object. Reference is a field in which we can specify either the branch or commit that we want to our function sources from. If we reference branch, we will follow the head. So actually, any commit will trigger rebuild of the function. In case we put some commit, we will be fixed on some revision. Right, and the last field is a runtime, which is the language of the Lambda. Actually, we will support actually 3 runtimes. This is the Node.js 12, which was actually before. Also, we will support Node.js 10 and Python 3.7. So there will be completely different, let's say, platform available soon. Let's check also the repository that is corresponding this function. This is a simple configuration for this repo, which is hosted, as I mentioned, on GitHub. It's publicly available. We are using HTTPS protocol, so it's like this is the of the how the mechanism will check, and we require no authentication here, so there is no field of specification. So let's apply those guys. First repo. Okay, we should be able to see repo and function. Okay, so git in. As you see, the function is configured. Its state of the build is right now it's unknown, but hopefully in a few seconds it will be true, which means that the function was built and now it's we are starting everything and then we are deploying it. So it will be available. As soon as it will be available, we will jump into web console and we will add API rule and check if the content of the lambda is that we expecting. So maybe one more thing before we jump into the console. Let's check the code. I've already cloned the public GitHub repository, and let's check the handler.js. This is maybe this is the structure of the repository. It has only 2 files. It has handler and package, so it's like pretty similar to the previous, the old, let's say, layout. Let's check the content of the handler function. So we are expecting, of course, hello world, which is like returned from this module, and let's jump into the console and create API rule. Let's call it no auth. As you can see, the service is already here. So let's create API rule, and we should be able in a couple of seconds to access the hello world function from Git. So let's change something to the handler to demonstrate that it's actually doing stuff. It's checking the changes. So let's fix it. Okay, so okay, we have modified it. Those are the changes. Let's commit it. Okay, and okay, let's push it to the master. Okay, so it was pushed to the public repository. Right now the function controller will should trigger the rebuild of the functions, and since its source code was modified, this mechanism is kicking in like each minute. So we might need to wait some time to observe the reaction. But eventually we'll see the changes to the code being applied. So maybe a couple of maybe not, because it's already kicked in. So actually we are rebuilding the function right now as previously. Right now in the new commit, because we are following the head. Soon we'll rerun the entire function and serve new body content. One maybe thing worth mentioning is that if for some reason we will fail to build the function, we will not stop to serve previous implementation. So in case any errors, we will have the version being served as it was. The rerunning is only triggered when the function was successfully built. So without further ado, let's check it, and we should be able to see, and we will see whole community world. So this covers the first scenario that I wanted to demonstrate. The second one is a bit complex because we will use private repository, and let me show you the object that we go back. Okay. Show you the objects that are going to be applied. So we will create a function again that it's also under the Git source control. This will be the reference to the repository that we will create. We will use master branch as a reference. Runtime is the same, and base dir is the root directory. Let's check the repository, which will the previous one. So it's like this URL is a little bit different because you can see that we are using a different protocol. And actually, also we will have authentication method, which in our case is key with password. So we support no auth, we support basic authentication, which is using password, and we support also the authentication with key, with password and without password. So we have all possible combinations of authenticating. Of course, this approach differs a little bit because we have here you have a secret name, which is a reference to a secret that contains credentials. So we show this secret. This is those keys will be removed after our presentation, so no worries. Let's just, I want to show you how it's. So this is a secret which contains the key and the password that holds it. Okay, so sorry, this shortcut. So let's apply the secret first. Okay, so secret with password. Okay, let's apply the repository. Right now we have 2 repositories available, and let's apply the function. Is in our case this key with password. So it should kick in. Yeah, we are configured, we are building, and we are running. When it's like rolling this function, it's worth to mention that those repositories are scoped for namespace. This is because of the security that we think. This is because of the security, because it's like we need to have access to the repository in order to write the code. So in case you have multiple namespaces that you need, and you have the same repository, you need to have each namespace this object. So we have it running. Let's check if it's accessible via API rule. Let's add an API rule. Create, sorry, API rule. Yeah, let's give a function. Let's just reload because it's not here. Yeah, now we have 2 of those guys. Function key with password. Great, looks good. Let's start it, and we should be able to actually see the hello world. And I will show you maybe the body of the, maybe not body, but the repository itself, because it's really interesting. So maybe just private repository, and as you can see, it contains more than 2 files. It contains also a directory which is referencing, which is a library referenced here in the handler. So actually, the handler is requiring this util file, which contains the function capitalize, which will change the this word to start with the capital letter. So maybe I'll just quickly show you how it's implemented. So that it's just executing capitalize on the given argument. So basically, as you can see here, this hello message, hello world message differs from the one that it's, because it's preprocessed. Yeah. So this is access to that was the access to a private repository via our implementation. Let's quickly demonstrate the way how we can change the resource. So I will modify the function. with key to point to different so we will change it to point the different base direct. Maybe one more thing. Maybe before this, let's jump into the code. Code private and change the branch, because this is what we are willing to do. So we are already on nested. Is already necessary. No need for change right now. Let's check the nested directory. So as you can see, we have a nested function, which is the same repository. So right now, from master branch, maybe I will show you. Right now, we are on this, right, on master, because we configured the function to point this branch. It has a library, it has a couple of different files, right? But it's like not having this nested folder, right? This nested folder is a lambda function, let's say code for a lambda function inside of a other lambda function. So let's change it from base dir to nested. We'll show this inner directory and reference also to nested. Right, and we should leave everything else as it is. Yep, as you can see, version was changed. Soon the build kicked in, and maybe I will also check out. So previously we've seen it was showing hello world, which was example of how we can extend our layout of our project. And now we change it to a nested function inside this repository, and we should see different grid, which is updated, right? So everything seems to be okay. Let's just start this, and as you can see, the source was updated. I think that covers all the things that I wanted to share with you guys. I would be glad if you have any questions to answer them or comments to address.
Cool, thank you, Marcin. Yeah, that was a really nice demo. I think people that are not so familiar with Kyma probably got slightly lost in there, but I think that is for people that know the Kyma, they understand the power of this approach. So let's start with some questions. I have a couple of them on paper, but let's see if anybody else. There was one question that I think John had regarding the languages that they will be supported. He asked particularly about Python, but so you mentioned that we will support multiple languages, correct?
Yes, this is true that we are also working on adding more languages for Lambda functions, and it's actually right now we are developing it. So so we will have more than just a node as a language. So this is
cool. I mean, if you guys have questions, you can unmute yourself and directly ask, or write them in the chat, and I'll pick them up. I have a question regarding the steps. I've seen that you most of the time took 2 steps, like creating those. There was a repo resource and the function resource, right?
Yes.
So all the time, that's how it's going to be. First, you kind of bind the repo, and then inside of that repo, you can have one or multiple functions, correct?
Yeah, exactly. The relation is that you function there may be one then more function in one repository, and actually this is we can try to, even if you want to have a live check that to have a second function that will be bound with the other, let's say, code in the same repository. So actually, yes, the relationship is you can have multiple functions in one repository.
So you could have a monorepo with hundreds of functions.
Yeah, actually, yes, but this is I don't think this is that would be efficient. I mean that we also need to consider that in each time that we are checking if something changed, we actually need to detect this change. So the bigger your repository is, the bigger it takes to check it. It's like it will be slower. So the more granulated the smaller your repository is, it's actually more performant, I would say. But it's possible to have it as you mentioned, to have only monorepo with lots of functions.
And could be technically even different. Well, it doesn't sound very, very good as a pattern, but you could have different functions, Python and Node.js technically in the same, right?
Yes. The only limitation right now is that you need to refer the root, maybe the root of the project is the thing that you are showing on the base dir. Base dir is the root, let's say, for this project. But you can, let's say, have a reference to any file inside this place.
Cool. You mentioned something about namespaces. Is namespace per repo or is it per function?
Yes. This is both for repo and per function, because it's like we designed it with the security in mind, because it's the convenient way to kind of limit access to users, because it may be that some users won't have access to every repository, so you can also granulate this access to someone, and without sacrificing security. So this is main, let's say, motivation behind it. But yes, this is you need to have each repo is in the scope of namespace.
So did I understand correct that the namespace will be per function or per repo?
If you want to use the namespace, let's say if you want to use the same repository in different namespaces, you need to have this object in the namespace that you are using. So you cannot cross, let's say, reference the repository.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay. So then more I would want to ask, and also for YouTube people that I will watch later. So this is a feature that we are working on, right? So this will be developed and offered as a solution in parallel with the online editor that we have right now, correct? So that will be there, and also we will have the option to.
Yes.
So there will be in parallel. It will be both options.
Yes. This is like yes, exactly. Nothing has changed to the previous implementation, and it will also support the new runtimes, so you can create those functions with the new languages.
Perfect. And then this is only about the function, but not about the bindings. You demoed the bindings. You did it manually in the API.
Yes, exactly. This functionality is only related to let's say serverless, but not binding. No exposing, no API rules, no triggers so far. But yeah. this is what actually this covers.
Perfect. I see the opportunity in the future to develop maybe in that direction too, or I guess we will have to see. For the moment, it's just about storing the functions in a Git repo to have versioning and also rollback if necessary.